Welcome to our Marvel movie talk, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness special. I'm Christian Bladt. Next to me,
Hi, I'm
it's
Kaitlin
Kaitlin.
Cornell.
Yeah, and we're doing the show in the same room.
I know, we're in the same
I
room.
can turn and actually see you.
Whoa! It was kind of like being in the theater.
it
You were
was-
actually on this side of me.
Except the only difference is that you're not punching me right now,
I
as
could.
you were during the movie. It might happen if you get really excited as we recap.
Oh my god!
So
And you're just like, girl, I'm watching. We're in the same theater.
Yeah. So the most important thing to tell everyone is that we are talking about the movie with all the spoilers. So this is for people who've already seen it. These are our early birds who went Thursday afternoon or Friday morning. We gave a good 24 some odd hours for you to see the movie. But now we're going to talk about it with all the spoilers. And the overall, I think it's always good to start big picture and then narrow the focus a little bit. For you, Kate, what were your thoughts, just big picture, on Doctor Strange?
I thought that, first of all, I think I really like that I saw this on Marvel Movie Talk. I think that the length of the movie was appropriate.
Yeah.
I know that there's some like, I want a half an hour more. And yes, we do want more content, but like, as a film, it told everything it needed to tell. Every character got their closure. Every arc was complete in a reasonable time period. I never was bored. I never was like, oh my God, when is this going to be over? Or like, I never thought about the time, which is a movie that is time centric and universe centric is very, very good. I think more superhero movies should get back to a 2-hour runtime.
Yeah, you squeak over 2 hours and 6 minutes. Most of that's credits. That's fine. And I think that we kind of went in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
I said this earlier in the week that Avengers Endgame was what, chapter 23 in a story, so it can go
Yes.
ahead and be 3 hours. That's all right. And the fact that 2:30, 2:45 has become the normal running length for genre movies. Look, if your story dictates that, sure,
Do it.
absolutely. But a lot of these movies don't need to be this long, and they had the sense that 2 hours and 6 minutes is what it took to tell this story.
Which is about 120 pages. So they figured they could do it. And also you had Sam Raimi as the director, who did all of the first 3 Spider-Mans that kind of re-kicked off the superhero genre. So he kind of likes this type of runtime anyway. And he felt like it was sufficient. And I agree. It was a nice experience to go to a movie theater. And then also on character big picture, a lot of good character development was made. A lot of closure was made on the Doctor Strange character, that he's able to move forward with a new kind of perspective. He kind of evolved into the Doctor Strange of the comic books that we know, or that comic fans know. And a lot of comic stuff was dropped. A lot of inclusion of multiversal things and meta Marvel things that we were worried that they wouldn't be able to do very subtly or very clearly or in story, and they were able to do it. So I was actually very, very pleased at how they got some of these meta themes and meta things into their universe.
And it's interesting too, because had they tried to tell this story before the Fox merger, how much more you could still tell the exact same story with the same characters, but it gets to be a little trickier, and deals need to be arranged, and that sort of thing. So they didn't have that obstacle, and we'll get into all of that in a little bit. But I think that it was the right approach, and I think Sam Raimi was very much the right director for this story. And there's a lot of ways in which it shows. And I posted some of the photos that we took when we went to the press screening on Monday, and a friend of mine from high school, she wrote, "Oh, that's great. I'm taking. My son is so excited for it. He's 11." I'm like, "Okay, well, just wanted you to know that it is the most gruesome Marvel movie they've made yet, with some really graphic deaths. Like,
there was a lot of brutality that has entered this universe that I wasn't expecting. And I think also what we didn't talk about was like most of the brutal things that have happened in previous Marvel movie iterations has been against like aliens and robots and more aliens. But like mostly like human deaths are like shooting and guns and punching. But they get very creative with some of the human deaths.
This is like beloved characters you're finally getting to see. And and while Black Bolt might not be beloved, his was the worst in some ways because he didn't have his
Captain
I mean
Carter
the
was
Captain Carter
awful.
was bad too, but I'm just saying that specifically it was because his was one of the first. And so
he kicked it off, really.
Yeah, he was the first
like
one.
This is where we're going.
Yeah, just wait. It's we're going to keep raising the stakes in terms of the gore. And a couple of times, I was just like, oh wow, I see what's probably coming right now.
There's some very big. I am not a horror movie person, and there were some moments. I'm thinking of the run through the under river tunnels.
Oh yeah.
And it was scary. It was like the monster chase in the haunted house.
Yeah, totally.
And they were definitely putting some like horror tropes inside a superhero universe, which when Marvel decides to combine genres into their superhero genre in like psychological thriller or political thriller with Winter Soldier, and when they decide to do cross genre, it really is interesting. But and it really
is, even when you think about like adding like straight comedy into Ant-Man,
right?
It usually works. And look, it works in this. And to my friend Erica, who has an 11-year-old son, I was just like, I just want you to know what this movie's like.
Right.
She had said that he had just watched the first one again, and I'm like, okay. And she's like, oh, he'll be fine. He used to watch. It's like he used to watch Nightmare Before Christmas when he was a baby, and he watches horror movies with me. I'm like, all right,
okay.
I don't know what these horror movies are, but I was like, look, I can now wash my hands that I didn't tell you to take your kid to it. Because there's so many. I mean, the one Strange that is impaled on the gate.
Oh my god!
We don't even like that Doctor Strange. Oh my
god!
He was one.
Bad.
Like we're just like, oh, this this iteration's a dick.
I think that was my fifth and final punch.
Yeah, I got punched a few times, and
I was mostly excited. I was very excited. Like, oh my god, did you hear the thing that we all just heard above the screaming?
Yeah, which sometimes it was hard to hear.
Yeah.
And even before we get to that, just like zombies and things like that, there was a lot throughout the movie that you're like, this has Sam Raimi's footprint or fingerprints on it, and in a way that those original Spider-Man movies really did not.
No.
So this was sort of more true to form, that this was probably what he was told not to do with Spider-Man, basically. But they're like, this is Doctor Strange, you can go ahead and do it.
It's also like those movies were made 20 years ago, and it shows how far that Sam Raimi has come with this genre, with these types of characters, and a different character, because we know it's like Sam Raimi Spider-Man, and that's kind of how we associate him. But to be able to pull off some of these very interesting, and I have to talk DP and editing for a second. The movie hinges on the way it's shot and the way it's edited, and the correlation between the two, and the communication between the two. Because there's a camera move with Wanda where she's dream walking, and the dream walking sequences were probably honestly my favorite ones, because of how they were shot and how they were put together, because you have these moments of like the camera moving and you basically like flash. And it was very reminiscent of a style that is hitting television right now. I know The Witcher did it in their latest season 2, where they had 3 women in a dream sequence, and having all of the ghosts kind of haunt them at the same time, and this kind of jump cut editing to make it seem a little bit out of sorts and out of joint, which is a good way to do in editing what a crossing the line would do in film, to make you feel like something is not quite right, and that two things are happening at the same time.
Yeah, and I think some of the visuals, to me, I thought that they were great. I saw somebody that I knew who was at the screening. She had posted that she thought that there was too much CGI, and I was like, I actually didn't think there was. I mean, I can see where certainly there are sequences where there are, but I thought that they did it in a good way, and it was well done when they did it. So I really thought visually it was great, and I mean, as a testament to that 2 hour and 6 minute runtime, we really hit the ground running. And granted, it's not our Stephen Strange, but right in the middle of, and we get to see America Chavez before we get to see almost anybody.
Yeah.
And I think she was great, obviously.
Oh my God.
And, there are people that are like, well, why didn't she get a TV series before she got a movie? I'm like, this is kind of the way they used to always do it.
Yeah.
And like, she works so well in the story. Let's just tell her story here.
And just to be clear, America Chavez is not Miss Marvel. Do not be, the star does not always mean a Marvel-esque person. She is her own character.
Yeah.
In the comics, she is Miss America.
Yes.
So
not
she
Ms. America.
Not Ms. America. Yeah. She's not part of the Marvels.
The Marvels,
yeah. So for people who were asking me, oh, how's Miss Marvel in it? Yes, she does punch things, but it is not big fist punching. She doesn't have giant hands. She is her own character, and she did a fantastic job. And also, the last time we saw Doctor Strange was almost as a refusal to mentor someone role in No Way Home.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it was, I'm going to help you out this one time, but I'm not going to really guide you through anything. And in this movie, he's kind of forced to be a guide to this girl, and the relationship between the two of them. I cannot imagine what those casting calls would have been like, because they had to get that chemistry spot on between the two actors, especially since Benedict had to play 3 or 4 or 5 versions of himself.
There were several, including Zombie Strange,
Frankenstrange.
Yeah, Frankenstrange. So how do you think you'd say her name? And I was like, oh, that's why I don't know what it is. So it starts with
oh my God, she's 16?
I had no idea, actually. See, we're looking up America Chavez, and oh yeah, see, you've got the pronunciation. I'll let you take it. Your eyes are better than mine.
Sochi
okay.
Gomez.
Sochi Gomez. See, the Gomez I had, that was easy. It looked just like Selena Gomez, the Gomez part. But anyway, she was great, and obviously we'll be seeing more of her because of that very important skill set, probably to Phase 4.
And actually, having her be 16, I actually have notes written down, because you know me, MMT,
MMT gang,
the MMT gang, with my notes and my Squirrel Girl references.
No Squirrel Girl in this movie.
No, I was expecting
her to scamper across somewhere.
I mean, I feel like one of the universes, you just needed him to turn into a squirrel, and it would have been fine. That was the only thing missing from the movie. I would have added 1 minute for a Squirrel Girl reference.
Okay, so then 2 hours and 7 minutes.
2 hours 7.
Like that extra minute was worth it.
Worth it.
That's fair.
But I was actually like, I almost wrote down, what I wrote down in my notes was great. I almost wrote down millennial character, but actually I corrected it, and I think America's a really great Gen Z character, and it's also really great that we're starting to add more younger characters and that type of generational representation, because her character arc is basically she's out of control and she has all of this power, but she doesn't know how quite to control it or how to use it, and so she's focused on the word control. I have to control myself. I have to control what my power is. And I loved that the message is, every time we've needed to go somewhere, you've put us where we needed to be to get the answer that we needed. So you have control. You don't need control. You just need to believe in yourself to make the world the way you want it to. And then her solution was not fighting head on. It was showing the consequences. And it's like, okay, you want to see your kids? Here are your kids.
Yeah.
And watching them be afraid of you. And so for us, like, our millennial characters are, the Scarlet Witches, where it's like we really want something very badly. And I think a theme of this Phase 4 is pain and acceptance of choices.
Yeah, and I think that it was very smart to, give her exactly what she wants, and you bring her to Billy and Tommy, and they're literally terrified of her, and her own self is just like, yeah, this is the crazy version of me that possessed me. And I think that it was probably the only way that was going to work. One of the things that you and I talked about after the fact was I was surprised we didn't get White Vision, which is
Cataract.
The Vision, as opposed to Vision, who we know from the earlier, the pre-Infinity War. The Vision being the white one. I thought we were going to get him, and that was going to sort of help her in some way, but it actually didn't fit in the story, and it made way more sense to bring her right to her kids, because the Vision isn't who she fell in love with. It's just sort of a representation of him, but she cares so much about these kids that literally she was not behaving rationally, and she doesn't care who gets hurt or who gets killed along the way. and I thought that they tied that up very nicely. But also, what a great continuation of Wanda's story. I mean, the earliest footage that we saw, where she's in the yard, when Stephen first goes to visit her,
that doesn't seem fair.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh, there's like apples, and she's growing apples and all that, and she's
which
like,
is kind of reminiscent of Evil Queen, which is another Disney property, and I was
true.
like, oh my god.
And she's like, I don't really, I left the magic behind me. And then I was like, oh, of course they showed us that scene because of the way when she changes it, and I was like, oh man, this is, and I think that we knew Wanda was in this. We knew it would factor into the Multiverse of Madness, but I didn't realize how much this was a Wanda story.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how big of a big bad she was in the story.
I didn't even really get, like, because when that first trailer came out and it's like the, I made the villain and that doesn't seem fair. The entire internet was shitting on her, going like, dude, you took over a town.
Yeah.
And I always felt weird about that moment in the trailer, because I'm like, yeah, but it's kind of like, for her, it's understandable, and it felt like there was, at the end of WandaVision, that there was like, she's accepted it, and she's, until you see that she has the Darkhold. But I never really realized until watching the movie, I'm like, oh, she's villain. Like, she's full villain in this movie.
Yeah, and it's like, Agatha Harkness knew to try and protect us from that. Granted, she had her own agenda.
Yep.
But yeah, and I was surprised at just how essential to the movie WandaVision was. That like you can see the movie without it, but there's a whole layer of the story that's just going to be lost on you.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I guess she has kids in another reality. It's not like you can't understand it. I think the appreciation is different, which, I mean, it's great that the TV series are that integral to the story. I mean, the next time we see Sam Wilson in a movie, you're going to need to know everything that happened in Falcon and Winter Soldier. We may never see Loki again in a movie, but if we do, you'll need to know what he's been up to and the fact that there's variants and all that. So I thought that it was interesting, but I also thought that this was another great opportunity for Elizabeth Olsen to just really show, like, big bad Wanda, which is the Wanda that a lot of people like. People love House of M Wanda.
Yeah.
So getting to see and the nice touch, and we saw Steven had it. Well, one of the Stevens had it, but the black fingers from using the Darkhold too much.
Yeah. The impaled Steven.
Yes.
The impaled Steven. We'll talk Steven. By death.
Yeah. So and just how much time we spend with Wanda in this movie. And the fact that Doctor Strange can only do so much, and he really can't stop her on his own. I mean, and that's why he first tries to get the Book of Ashanti, and then the Darkhold, and even that, he's still really, the importance of the teamwork. Having to have America obviously is the one who ultimately helps Wanda realize, what are you doing? And I mean, even early on, Steven asks, like, what about the mother to the Billy and Tommy that you basically are going to steal, and there she was, and they got to see it, and the fact that they're like throwing things at her, and of course it didn't hurt her physically, but just that look on
the
her
emotional
face. Yeah,
pain.
I thought that was a great sequence, especially at that point in the movie.
This whole thing is centered on emotional pain, and I mean, it's interesting. Like, I feel like the best villains are the ones that make it really personal. Like, I honestly don't think Loki was a great villain in Avengers. Ultron was a good villain in, like,
good.
But they were good.
A good way to amend it. That Ultron was good.
But it was like global destruction and global conquest, but it wasn't personal. And really, they didn't have a personal villain until Zemo.
Yeah,
I don't think.
No,
and while there were kind of issues with that character, it really wasn't about him succeeding. Was him breaking apart the Avengers, no matter what the cost was to him, and because of his family. And then we got the closure in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier of that story. But to have a movie about what does it cost me?
Yeah.
And in any universe, Steven does not get Christine. in most universe, in only 616, which is named.
Yes.
We'll talk about that. Wanda doesn't get her kids, and in none of those universes is Vision there.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. And that's probably got something to do with the way in which our 616 Wanda lost Vision, and something about the repercussions of that throughout the multiverse.
Which is weird, though, because like I don't think fate has really come up. Fate and choice as a theme hasn't come up in the Marvel universe yet, until I think they started talking about it after Endgame, and they brought it up, like how many choices really were there, and it's like it really was just one out of the, you know, insert big number here that I can't remember because I don't remember it.
Yeah, but it was like millions, you know.
And there was only one, and it's like of all the millions of universes, he doesn't get Christine in any of them.
Yeah, and then
but in this one, he helps America.
Yeah.
Unlike other universes where it's like, are you the same in every universe? Are you forced to make the same choices?
And having had that dream, he knows that the solution isn't to take her powers. You know, and I thought that was you know, that was good. It shows that, like, oh yeah, ours is the good one. And, you know, I think one of the things heading into this, and I've seen people post that, like, oh, you need to watch What If to see this movie. You absolutely don't.
You don't.
It's just, you understand the concept of the multiverse. So if you've seen Spider-Man, you're all set. You don't need to actually look at that. But even in that one, the one really good episode that I liked, which I think was the third one, the Doctor Strange one, actually it was not the third one. The third one's the one I hated. But the Doctor Strange one, you know, he's like obsessed with trying to make that happen. So in that way, that episode is sort of relevant because it shows that you can try as hard as you want, but but he and Christine just don't actually happen. And I thought that was interesting, because even in the one that we spend time where we meet the Illuminati, that one, she's like, yeah, it never really worked out. And it's like, of course it didn't, because it doesn't work out.
Which blew my theory out of the water that it was the Living Tribunal, but you know,
that's whatever. All right, yeah. But it was good to see, you know, and good for Rachel McAdams. You know, she got to do some stuff. She got to do some heroic stuff. You know?
And it was Rachel McAdams and Christine that revealed that, yes, we know the multiverse exists, and this is 616.
Yeah,
and that was really cool.
It's funny because of all the big stuff that happens in here. That's kind of a minor thing that I think your casual audience isn't even going to notice. It's probably going to be the thing that upsets so many people, because calling this one 616 is like, well, 616 is the comic book Marvel universe, and it's so different than this. And we were given a number that was associated with the MCU. It had more digits. I think it had a bunch of 9s in it. I actually don't know what the number was.
Also,
and if we were doing this live, Daniel Drew would probably be in the chat, and he would say, like, here's what number it is. But you know, so the fact that they called this 616, I'm like, I think that's going to annoy people, and then it's going to annoy me that it annoys them. It's like, it's just her. You know, this Christine said that that's what we're going to call it. It doesn't mean that that's what it is. You know, what does the watcher think it is? You know, ask him. But I did think that. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. That was one of the punches. I definitely got punched when they said 616. Yeah, I know I did.
Because I feel like if chat. Tell me if I'm wrong. If they said any other number, would you really be as excited?
Yeah, no, and exactly. Yeah, if they were like, and our universe is 1961. It was the first year of the Marvel universe.
It was as excited as I got last year when I watched Loki, and everyone was like, why do they move it to a Wednesday? That's so weird. And they're like, they don't want to compete with Star Wars. And then it wasn't until they blew apart the TVA and they started blowing up the timeline on June 16th, which is 616.
Oh, yeah.
And they blew up the timeline on 616.
I forgot about that.
And it's like, you know what, dudes? I tip my hat to you, sir. That was well done.
Well done.
I appreciate that little tiny reference for my little nerd heart.
I think this was also a good story for Wong. I mean, he's missing for a while.
He was in it.
He's missing for a while. I do love the idea of, like,
the Sorcerer Supreme
to bow in the presence of the Sorcerer Supreme, and Steven's like, I know.
Okay.
You know, but meanwhile,
it's a custom.
Yeah, but he also he didn't get people to bow for him, I don't think. So
Stephen Strange doesn't give a shit. And we also really didn't see him as Sorcerer Supreme to other people of the Kamar-Taj.
That's a great point. Yeah, that is a great point.
Except for when they were fighting Thanos, which if you have to bow to Stephen Strange before fighting Thanos, your priorities are a little messed up.
My favorite Wong and Steven moment in the movie is when Zombie or Frankenstrange is there, which is a better name.
I don't
want to know. Yeah, exactly. And when he just said that, I'm like, oh, I like the two of them together. Where's the buddy cop movie with these two? Let's have them go on one of those Hope and Crosby road pictures. I just want to see them like driving to Tucson or something.
Which I totally forgot about that episode of What If with Doctor Strange, because when you mentioned What If, I was just like Captain Carter and Franken zombies.
No, the Dark Strange one, which then came back in one of the later ones. That was the only one I really liked, and some of the other ones were.
I totally forgot about it. Like those were the two What If references that I went to. I just
felt like we were going to see that Strange in this movie.
Yeah,
because the early scuttlebutt was like, oh yeah, you should see What If before this. You really don't need.
You don't need to.
You don't need to see it even.
Yeah, and then we also got Defender Strange as well, the ponytail guy in the beginning.
Yeah,
that was Defender Strange. That was cool.
Yeah, and then he's the one who becomes our Frankenstrange because he's the corpse. Which when it got buried under those rocks, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to see that. I can't wait to see that later.
I'm like, I was just like, just burn it. No, he's coming back.
Yeah, and man,
but I forgot about it. So when it did happen, I was like, oh, cool, great.
Yeah.
And then also having just read Way of the Weird, I think that was the first punch. Was when he reveals it, because in Way of the Weird, if you haven't read the comic books, which actually after watching this movie, I actually do recommend you watch Way of the Weird.
Yeah.
Because I was like, you're all right, but I'm actually like it heightened my enjoyment because there is a section of the comic books where he talks about how Doctor Strange sees magical creatures that people can't see, and there is a moment where it's mayhem and chaos, and then he moves his hand, and then you see the monster that he sees, the magic vision.
Yeah.
So I actually thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and that was one of the best parts of that comic, was just that he constantly sees the world differently than we do. And what they didn't get into this movie was this idea that he's absorbed so much good magic, bad magic, and all this stuff that he can't even eat regular food. So, and I guess this Stephen Strange missed out on 5 years, so maybe he's not there yet, but maybe we'll see some of those, the impact that it has.
Well, he's still Sorcerer Supreme in the comic book universe. Wong hasn't.
Well, I think technically Clea is Sorcerer Supreme.
That's right
now, like at this moment.
That's right. Because we have the Strange.
Yeah, so we'll have to see. But yeah, he never passed the mantle to Wong, and
because Wong was to be the one who would feed him all the slugs and stuff.
Right, exactly. And then of course the Ancient One in comics was an old Asian man and not Tilda Swinton. So, it's just like when you read the comics, you're like, well, yeah, I got to remember stuff like that. It's not the way that you think.
It's all right.
But the movie really covers a lot of ground, and I think it moves really well. It didn't have a feeling of like, oh, it's kind of slowed down for a bit there.
No.
And
it slowed down when it needed to, which I think is the conversation between Strange and Christine.
Strange and Christine stuff I think was important. And honestly, like, the actual meeting with the Illuminati, that's a fairly slow segment, but nobody was like, oh, I want this to end. Everybody was
it also helped that you had a lot of character drops.
You had a lot of character. Yeah, exactly. It was like a Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album cover. It's like, look who's over there, and over there, and over there, and over there. And I think I got some punches there. And
well, technically, okay. So I have to amend something. So I knew that we all knew that Professor X was in it because his voice is in it.
Yeah.
And we've seen some of the kind of the Xavier chair from 92 in there. I was really happy, and this is why I punched you, and I'm very sorry, that they put in the X-Men 92/97 because of the reboot.
Yeah.
And it is credited as X-Men 97.
Yeah.
They put the theme song in there, and I was so stoked. Like, my childhood came back a little bit.
That is one of the best musical cues in a movie in a long time. I think, like, as flawed as the movie is, like that moment when you get the Wonder Woman's theme and Batman vs Superman, that's pretty great. But this is also like call back to your childhood, and it's like they didn't use like the Bryan Singer theme, from like X-Men 2000,
right?
They used the animated series, and I'm like, well, this is even better.
Because it was the animated series character, which was really, really cool. And the fact that Patrick came back to do that, if you're listening, thank you. Just on behalf of everyone who loves you and loves this character, thank you for doing that.
He probably would have sought this out to watch if he didn't see my show on Star Trek Picard.
Oh no!
Unfortunately,
did you screw this up for me?
I think I did. Yeah, because that is actually one of the worst shows I've ever seen.
But also, fun fact: the DP for this movie, John Matheson, also did Logan. So this is not his first time working with Pat Stu.
Sir Pat Stu.
Sir Pat Stu. And he also did X-Men First Class.
All right.
And he did Gladiator. So props to you.
All right. So he's got some cool posters hanging around his house.
Oh yeah.
If he isn't so inclined to remember. So like we knew a while ago that Patrick Stewart was in there, and I think when we talked about it on Marvel Movie Talk, I was just like, maybe he's not though. I figured that he was, especially once Patrick Stewart was like asked about it in an interview, and he's like, "Who's Doctor Strange?" And he was just really bad at like pretending
he can't lie.
Yeah, I think it was too funny to him to try.
Well, what was great about like when Patrick Stewart started this whole journey into the Marvel universe with X-Men, like it wasn't as like clamped down as it is now.
Yeah.
So like they never really learned to lie about it. So they're just like, yeah, here's a whatever.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. And I think that obviously that was cool, and I actually did not recognize him, but I did not know, speaking of Star Trek, I didn't realize that Anson Mount was Black Bolt, who of course played Black Bolt in the TV series of Inhumans, which I know wasn't good, but somehow I'm the only human on Earth that enjoyed it in any way possible. It was not very good. He was the best part of it, and he didn't talk in the whole series. I thought that that was actually pretty impressive, and that was I felt like there's no reason you needed to use him as Black Bolt, especially if you're going to put him in another movie and you want to have a different actor. So you go ahead and bring in a different actor. So now that tells me if we're ever going to see him again, why wouldn't Anson Mount play him? But anyway,
well, it's also this is a different universe.
Yeah, so anybody else could play him.
When he showed up, he was in a different universe. He was in an 8. I don't know. I'm not going to remember that number.
Yeah, I won't either. But I don't know what number that one was.
But I did love seeing her in the suit. I loved seeing Captain Carter on the big screen.
Yeah. I've seen it animated, and obviously there's a comic book series right now, but to have actually seen her in the movie,
her in it, like she deserved that. And I know that after that episode of What If came out, a lot of fans were like, "Come on, man! Like, come on!" Especially since Agent Carter was kind of stopped a little too soon.
Yeah, they only had 2 seasons, and I think people wanted more for sure. And it was very cool to see her, especially throughout the fight sequence, like the way that she utilized the shield and all of that. And but that sequence where Wanda's fighting the Illuminati is the most that's the most disturbing. That's the most disturbing.
I mean, well, the impaling scene is not great.
It's not great, but it's momentary.
No. Oh, and the what are they called? The souls of the damned.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I was not happy. Yeah. I was not happy. Especially when it attacked Christine. And like for me, this is why I can't watch like the end part of Last Crusade when the guy melts in front of her and he's like holding her. Because all I can feel as a woman is like Melty Man is 6 inches from me versus like in Raiders where it's like 50 feet from me and I can kind of handle it.
Yeah.
But like having like the thing, I was just like, I was not okay.
Some of the stuff in this movie is right up there with when I was a kid and saw Temple of Doom and he reaches out and grabs the guy's heart, So those Indiana Jones movies actually are pretty gruesome. So of course, as we talk about the Illuminati, the biggest reveal was the one that I got to like 2 days before our screening without having somebody tell me. And our friend Michael Shirley texted me a TMZ link about John Krasinski being in Doctor Strange. And I'm like, oh, well, there's a character that I'd heard that he was probably going to play. And I had every reason to think that Reed Richards was going to be in this movie because we felt like the Illuminati was in it and Reed Richards is part of it. That part. But I was just like, I knew before the movie started that John Krasinski was in it.
I didn't. And I avoided it.
I didn't ruin it for anybody else. Just Michael ruined it for me. And as fans of the show know, although we did go back and edited it, he did tell Jeff and I that Harry Styles was in Eternals, and we did not know that. So he just assumes that we know these things. I'm like, why would I know that? I intentionally avoid stuff like that. So anyway,
and here's a PSA to fans. And you're watching this because you're a fan.
Yeah,
you're watching this because you love it. You bought tickets 5 million weeks ago because you didn't want these spoilers.
It kept crashing on your phone, and you're like, I gotta try again.
I gotta try again. Yeah. So we love these movies, and not everyone who loves these movies can see them exactly when they come out. Either they're working, they have kids. We're still in an endemic. People are still freaked out for a variety of reasons. And we were really, really good. And maybe it was because we were in pandemic and it was Christmas. For No Way Home, we really did a great job. And we have, and even with Batman, like I didn't get a lot of spoilers for the Batman either.
I didn't know that.
And of course, nobody spoiled Morbius because nobody saw it.
There was also nothing to spoil. That's like, hey, you spoiled that carton of milk that was left out for 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, that happened a long time ago.
But PSA from a fan to all the other fans and fans that you know, let's keep it going. Let's not spoil anything.
Yeah.
For future fans who can't see it.
Love and Thunder will be with us in about 2 months.
Yeah, and we'll also get Miss Marvel in June. So
yeah,
like in terms of TV shows and in terms of the other Marvel content that's coming out, and even Star Wars content and Star Trek content.
Just everything. Yeah, it's like when you know something, it's like if it's not, and even when it's
with great power comes great responsibility. Internet,
and it's
done
exactly. But there's also just this idea that even if it's in the trailers, you have people who avoid the trailers. So it's like, don't assume that people know the things you know. Now, you can always have the conversations like, so have you seen any of the
always
trailers?
Ask.
Have you seen any spoilers? Like if Michael's text to me were, hey, have you heard about any of the the leaks or the rumors about cast? I'll be like, no, I don't want to know about it either.
Yeah.
But instead, I gotta, of all the things in my phone, in my text inbox, it's a link to a story, and I'm using this as my own example. It didn't ruin the movie for me at all. I'm
really glad it didn't, because you told me after, and I was like, oh God. But then I was like, it's not that big of a deal. But it's still like,
if I had no idea that the character might be in the movie, I think that. But look, to get to see him as Reed Richards is exciting for what it means for the future. And let's get Jenna Fisher to play Sue Storm, because everybody wants to see the two of them still together after all this time. I think that would be appropriate. And the conversation that Wanda has before she just stretches the life out of him, when she's like, do your children have a mother?
Because then there's someone to raise them.
Yeah, and I was just like, oh man, more like Scarlet Bitch. Am I right or am I right?
There was more of a, I think the brutality from Sam Raimi was escalated because of how to show how far Wanda was willing to go. It was a definite like, we're not skirting around anything. This is the depth of this pain, and I'm really glad that we got consequence of pain in Black Widow, but to watch someone go through pain. And then choose to sacrifice themselves for that pain in a way so that it didn't hurt anyone at the end, because she's definitely, unless something magical happens, which she is a magical being, but to destroy the entire Vandagore. Is that
Wundagore, Mount Wundagore? Yeah, which that goes back to the comic book origin of the character, and the fact that Magneto's her and Quicksilver's dad and all that. But so that was like a nice moment where everybody, your reading nerds were very excited in that moment. But yeah, look, I think that the only thing that we could have seen that would have had more impact was if Wanda killed alternate versions of like all of her friends, like if she did that to Steve Rogers and Tony and Bruce and everybody. I mean, I'm glad we didn't see that, but just to see the depths that she'll go to be with these children who those children aren't actually yours, because your children aren't real, which is
was where I thought we would have seen Vision.
No, that would have, there's a few points where it would have made sense, but I think that they've got something else planned for the Vision.
The Vision.
But
who's always going to be Cataract to me because it is Project Cataract and he's white. So
and he's white. Yeah. So I thought that some of that stuff, it's like we got to be excited and see these characters for a little while and then watch them get killed. It's like, oh my god, Captain Carter. And then of course let's not forget that we got Maria Rambeau as Captain Marvel.
Yes.
We got Monica's mom, Carol Danvers' best friend from the Captain Marvel movie, as Captain Marvel, which I thought was great. Great to see that too. It's easy to be blinded by the fact that Reed Richards is in the movie,
but and it's easy to miss with all of the kind of drops that they were doing, and it was really nice to get also more women on the council. Like, hey, yeah. The other character that I want to spend a brief talk about, and I know we're going a little over.
Oh no, it's all right. We're gonna keep it to under an hour, but we can go right up to that.
We need to talk about Mordo.
Yeah, no, I it was next. It's not. I'm not fancy like you with all the words and the writing, but Mordo's who I wanted to talk to next. I thought that it was great that we got to see him, and the fact that he seemingly was like, "Oh my god, my brother, great to see you," and then Steven has the point of like, "You kind of hate."
Don't trust the tea.
Yeah,
always spill it. Yeah. Just always spill the tea.
Never actually drink it. But the idea that it was like, you don't like me in any of these universes,
and that he can't. The best part about Stephen Strange, which is infuriating to read in the comics, honestly, is how cocky he is.
Yes.
And he's taking the place of Tony in a way. And that's why they like rubbed up against each other, because they both had the same level of like, I'm just better than you. But to see how I love Benedict Cumberbatch playing a character like this, because some of the characters, he always plays a little bit of a higher intellectual character. I'm going to say
literally the highest intellect in Sherlock.
Yeah,
like he's the smartest.
Or like you have him in like The Fifth Estate, and you have him in Imitation Game, and you have him in all of these movies, and to see him kind of a little bit like with a little bit of swag is really, really nice. And to pair that against someone who is steadfast as Mordo. And the thing is, like, Mordo's steadfastness and Strange's ability to adapt and think outside of the box is what makes that character interesting to watch. And honestly, it was probably the most creative fight choreography in the entire movie. Was when they fell through the gap and they were both had no magic, and it was nice to see him fight with no magic. Does that take away his finger ability? Because he's technically Broken Finger Man when he doesn't have magic,
right?
But I didn't care about it until I just thought about it. It's like 4 seconds ago. So so I'm going to ignore that and keep going. Hey.
But yeah, I mean, just in general, they were a great fight. We're talking about both Captain Carter and Maria Rambeau against Wanda. I mean, there was great physical combat and also some great usage of powers by both Wanda and Maria. So
they just got the dudes out of the way. They're like, we're gonna kill the dudes and then have the three girls go at it.
There's the moment in Endgame that some people loved when you had all the female superpowers, and then you had some who were just like, it's cool, but it felt forced. And then this was like a little bit more natural, where it was just like, all the dudes did get killed, but it's all right. We got this. And unfortunately, they did not get that.
They got it for like a second, but like Wanda is like Scarlet Witch is insane, and like it showed. She was held back in the previous movies by her lack of belief in herself, and like half of it was not believing, and half of it was like not being awake. And having something to fight for makes people stronger. We know this in any of the iterations of any of these characters. Having a goal or an intention makes them infinitely stronger. And it's also corrupting. Like, it's also absolutely corrupting. The thing that they left out of Wanda's character is that she's not a Nexus being.
Yeah.
That America's the Nexus being. And, the goal is to take the power so that she becomes the Nexus being, that she can travel between worlds. But Wanda having that power unlocked by her need and her belief, and in a way, Agatha did it.
Yeah,
Agatha, that's true. It was Agatha all along.
For hundreds of years, it was Agatha all along.
It showed how powerful she was, because I think a previous criticism of Scarlet Witch, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that like she's so much more powerful in the comics, and they're not giving her that in the MCU. They gave it to her, guys. Like, they did it. And I think we have to, whenever we get a new character introduction, and whenever we see them get in these team situations, each movie is them growing. I mean, we didn't get almost a final Doctor Strange until the end of this movie, and he's been in like 4 or 5 since.
Right. And I mean, think about, Carol, when you meet her, and it's like, yes, in the end of Captain Marvel, you see a lot of what her potential is, but you don't really see it until Endgame, when she goes up against Thanos. And you also, I mean, so the idea that you hadn't seen enough of Wanda, I mean, one in the comics, it was a good like 20-25 years before you realized like the potential of what she could be. And it was just like, oh yeah, I can do hexes and basically like party tricks, like that kind of a magician.
So I think especially with phase 4, with these new superheroes, we've got some coming up in Moon Knight, we've got some introduced in different iterations, we've got the Eternals. I think we have to reserve a little bit of judgment before comparing them to their comic iterations that we know currently.
Yeah.
Because what they showed me is, yes, we know these comics. Yes, we know these characters. Yes, they'll get there.
Right, exactly. And I think that with Wanda, it's like, oh, maybe she should not have ever gotten there. And that's basically, how she brings down the mountain. And it's like, sure, we can definitely see Wanda again. But we also, I mean, it shouldn't be for a while. I don't know that it's going to fit into the stories of the next few movies, so we could realistically not see the character again, but she died in a way where she's not really dead, because when somebody gets buried under rocks, it's they're usually,
I mean, it happened in this movie. Someone was buried under rocks and he became a zombie.
Right, exactly. So we could get zombie Wanda at some point, but
which is another What If reference.
That's true. We did have that zombie Wanda. But there was the very end of the movie where it says Doctor Strange will return. That was the last punch that I got. So then the question is,
wait a minute, hold up. That was not why the punch happened. But
was the punch because of
we were having a conversation, and we will talk about the mid credit scene in a hot sec.
Yeah.
But like the punch came because we were chatting while we were waiting for the credits to finish rolling.
Yeah.
And we're like, Christian said, what if they don't do an end credit sequence, if they make us sit here? And the last time I thought, and there is a mid credit and an end credit sequence, we have been well trained, everybody, and they are not disappointing. But the only time that they didn't, from my memory, please correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, I won't read it, but correct me, was in Far From Home.
Yeah, I think that they had like
one of the Spider-Man movies.
No, it was Far From Home. There was a trailer.
There was a PSA from Captain America.
Yeah,
where he was just like, "Patience, this should be practiced. Are we done yet?"
Yeah,
and that was really funny. I like when they do funny credit sequences. Yeah, in that vein. It's
so obviously, the cameo from Bruce Campbell, and then having him end the movie like it's over. That was
I need to talk about that. But the punch came because usually they do the end credit sequence and then the will return.
Yeah.
And so they did the will return without doing the end credit sequence. I'm like, did you freaking call that?
And then we did.
And then it didn't.
Bruce Campbell. Yeah.
There's a lot of also fourth wall breaks in this movie, which should be talked about more on another podcast.
I'm trying to think about. Just give me one.
Bruce Campbell at the end. Yeah. And Wanda breaks the fourth wall, and Strange breaks the fourth wall by looking directly into the camera.
Oh, okay.
And it's not a someone's right in front of me and I'm talking to them, because there are moments where Wanda is directly in camera to talk to Strange, which is right behind camera.
Yeah.
But there are moments where it's like there's definitely an acknowledgement.
I'm surprised that John Krasinski didn't look into the camera, because he built a career on that.
He did.
So we could have gotten one of those. But we didn't. And
but there are a few fourth wall breaks in the movie, so if you didn't catch them, and you have any theories on why they decided a fourth wall break, please let us know. And also, I'm really into meta theming. Obviously, the whole choice of versus fate. And if you saw any that you wanted to talk about, drop it in the chat or drop in my DMs.
Yeah, at
Cornellable.
So let's talk about that. The mid-credit scene, though. So at the very end of the movie, we see the third eye, which is something that we've seen before for Doctor Strange. Now, we had just read for Geekscape Book Club, we had just read The Way of the Weird, which deals with, sort of having that third eye. It's not something that we'd seen from this iteration before,
right?
But he has it. It's just usually not open. But then,
but the sad impaled Strange had it, so it was a nice little like, okay, it's not completely out of nowhere.
Right, exactly. So let's. So, what are your thoughts for what we're going to see next after he's approached and he's like, let's go, so
yeah. I also Marvel is now doing this thing where, similar to the television shows, they're putting in a new superhero or a new call to adventure in script writing terms in like the very last moment. They're like, season finale, let's just put her there, let's put him there. In mid-credit scene, great, let's put in Harry Styles, and let's put in all these other characters, but not explain it at all. I have no freaking idea, and I'm really happy for Charlize. I'm really glad she's in this. She's joined the MCU. I honestly have no idea who she is. Do you?
I don't.
And this is me being like, please don't yell at me, internet. No, this is me having other things.
She was dressed, I felt like I should know, but I'm not actually. Yeah, I mean, this is the problem.
I'm just not versed enough in Strange Land.
I think by the time everyone.
What if he did Stranger in a Strange Land?
What if it was?
What if it was Doctor Strange in a Strange Land?
Doctor Strange in a Strange Land. That should be part 3.
Oh my god!
By the time
I just did it.
By the time we do subsequent conversations about this movie, I think we'll start to have a lot more theories. I didn't know, and I was just excited, and I'm like, oh, cool. All right, he's gonna, he's basically in trouble now. And
I also like how the invisibility cloak was a hipster scarf.
Oh yeah,
that was nice.
It was a hipster scarf. Yeah. So I'm very interested in people's reaction and seeing where it goes. I feel like Stephen Strange doesn't fit in for a little while. We know all the next batch of movies, the next year worth of movies. I'm not saying he can't be in them, but there's not really a good fit for him in. I mean, Quantum Mania, and
I don't think Quantum Mania, because it's inward. And I feel like the next Eternals is where we're going to get Stephen Strange.
That would make sense, yeah.
Because what she did say, Mystery Theron, was there was been an incursion, which we found about from Christine. Yes. So I can only assume that she's from that universe.
Oh, the same one that Christine was from.
Yes, unless there are other multiverses that have come up with the same language, that have come up with these, the same kind of science. But also, why wouldn't these other universes, they're also aware of each other, they've numbered them, but why wouldn't they be aware of each other? And why don't they talk to each other? If so, is there only that universe that is solving the incursion problem? So I can only assume that based on the dialogue that was given to Charlize. Perhaps this is another iteration, unless Doctor Strange is going to be completely romantic partnerless, which I actually do appreciate, that the romantic partners in future phases have been given more to do. And Mighty Thor is going to be the next iteration of the romantic partner being given a leading hero role, which is really great. I do feel like Christine had a hero role in this one. And now we actually get someone who's a superhero saying, hey, there's an incursion and you should help us out.
So in theory, Charlize Theron is playing Clea. So that would actually make sense.
Oh, so she's going to be from the other universe. Okay, cool.
And in an iteration of the character in the comics, he is married to Clea at one point. So, so we can kind of see where this Clea is from. Does she know a Stephen in whatever timeline she's from? There's a lot of questions that this raises, but I feel like we might not see him again until the third Doctor Strange movie because of the way that this was left.
Right.
I mean, unless you're going to insert a story basically from between the end of the film when he has the third eye and then before that. I mean, you could, but then it gets messy when you try to do that. So I feel like we won't see him for a few years.
Oh God, that's going to be painful.
But I feel like we'll see Reed Richards again before we see Stephen Strange, but
I agree with that.
Probably won't see Black Bolt if I had to guess.
I don't think so. I think that was a end of character for Black
Might
Bolt.
very well be.
I mean, they already Inhumans was supposed to be a film, and then they
Yes.
canceled the film, and then they made it a TV show,
And then people weren't happy.
And then they kind of did the like Jar Jar Binks Black Bolt a little bit. I think they're just like, we're just gonna, and as opposed to like, you hate this character and we're gonna make him the most important thing. It's we're just gonna destroy him.
We're just gonna make him we'll make him a politician, and then his head's gonna explode. So, So the idea that is Clea is exciting, and we'll see. But before we know it, Love and Thunder will be here, and then we've got
before
all those
things. You know.
And but of course, before that, it's Marvel. And as we're recording this, we just finished Moon Knight, so no shortage of Marvel content.
Right.
Of the things that are all coming up now that we've seen this, what do you think, Kate, you're most excited about? It could be the next one, but
seeing this movie again.
Yeah, I would like to see it again. I sometimes when you see press screenings, depending on what it is, the reaction can be a little bit muted, but this was not one of those rooms of press.
Can I tell them about the moment where the entire theater laughed at me? And
you alluded to this on our show.
Oh my God, it was really embarrassing.
Yeah.
So I've never done this before, because normally, like, I'm very excited in movies, but I also love being in a theater. The best part about going to screenings this weekend is having the visceral reaction, and the fact that it's not theater, the fact that the actors aren't there and we still have that visceral reaction, like that's what filmmaking is about, and that's why we like these movies. Like, I don't think I'll ever have another moment where, like, when Cap lifts the hammer, like there's not gonna be a moment that tops that for me. But challenge accepted. When and everyone was like cheering, and there was like for everything, but during the moment, the final hit of like, are we not going to get an end credit sequence? I definitely had a verbal reaction. I expected more people to have a verbal reaction, like a no or a meh. It didn't. I was the only one, and so the entire theater laughed at me. And then definitely Miss Bruce Campbell like punches himself like a couple of times.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, oh God, I became that person. Please don't look at me. I'm not existing.
Because that was
just like hide, like find a universe to crawl into, and
was
leave.
The Doctor Strange will return moment. Right?
Yeah. And I was just like, are we not going to get an end credit sequence? Did I really just sit here after we talked about...
I jinxed it.
You jinxed it!
Yeah, it was my fault that there wasn't one.
I know. And then there was.
Yeah.
So I was just like...
Well, Kate, I'm glad that you were able to come over and actually have this conversation. It's fine to do it over StreamYard and on the computer, but the delay is always, it's like, I'm talking. And it's always fun to do this. And I'm glad you were able to join me now for the second of the press screenings that we've gone to. You went to Black Widow with me, which that was the first movie I'd seen in like almost a year and a half.
Yeah.
And, even though, as you know, you were third down on my list, but as I pointed out,
I'll be third of 12. I'm fine.
Third of 12. You were third of 12. Yeah.
I'm like top 25%. I'm like golden.
Yeah. Eric has still never. Eric Connor, who we do Marvel Movie Talk with, still hasn't been one with me. Jeff got to see
Eric. You're next.
Yeah, got to. So hopefully for Eric. Jeff got to see Eternals. Yeah. Eric has seen none of them yet. So maybe Love and Thunder is going to be his day, but we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll have to find out.
I just am excited because I've been on Blackcast and Marvel Movie Talk for a little over a year now, and I'm just really grateful for this family and this like interesting, and getting to know, I do talk to a couple of you on the grams, and it's just nice to be a part of your family, Christian, and thank you for being so welcoming to me.
We have to thank Happy Cappy for even bringing us together.
Who I feel like she's only excited for 5 seconds of this movie.
But those 5 seconds
are going to be great.
She's going to be like, I don't even remember the rest of the movie. She's like the X-Men 97 theme. It's almost like you could nudge her, like, you could probably go home now.
Yeah.
It's like, it's great, but for her, it might not, she might not need it anymore.
Also, for people who do like this sort of multiversal traversons between that, watch Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I have to give props to that movie because I do think that they did well for themselves by releasing before this movie, because I think people who were interested in it were curious about their take. It is an interesting take on how the multiverse could work. It's definitely not the Marvel take, but if you're interested in this type of story, they did it really, really well.
And Michelle Yeoh's great in everything.
She's great.
So you can't really go wrong. But if people want to continue the conversation with you, I know we mentioned it earlier, but where do they find you, Kate?
They can find me on the interwebs. They can find me in the metaverse, as it were, at Instagram and TikTok at Cornellable.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDMZ. And of course, all across the Blackcast YouTube channel. We have this show, the titular Blackcast, and our various Star Trek shows. One of the shows, I think, Strange New Worlds with Anson Mount will be something that we'll actually be excited about, whereas Picard is not something that we're excited about. But
you can't keep saying that because then he won't watch.
I know. He keeps like turning it back on just in time to hear it. And he's like, oh, I'm really sad now. But we appreciate that. And please leave comments on the video. We will certainly respond to your comments. And tune in next week for another special Doctor Strange episode. And we will tweet that out for when and where you can find it, and also who will be on. And Michael Shirley will see this movie eventually, but he's still like 2 Spider-Man movies behind.
So I would love to see Michael Shirley's haven't seen the movie hot take.
That's true. It'll be the hottest of takes. But that is all the time we have for now. As the great Stan Lee would say, Excelsior.
Bye, guys.